Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And welcome to Yin and happy summer solstice, Father's Day, new moon. So many things. We had a solar eclipse that was seen in parts of the world, in India and Africa, Asia. So it's very potent. And let's take a dive right in. With Yin, we're going deep anyway, but this is a really activated time. So let's just get right into our practice. We're going to come into the practice lying down on our backs. For this practice today, you'll use a couple blankets nearby, have your blocks near you. And so we're going to start on our back. And just come to lie down and take some breath. I really want you to start to ground to the earth this morning. Drop your shoulders back. Relax your belly. Close your eyes. Soften the jaw. Soften the skin that touches the earth. Let your bones get heavy to the earth. There's a weight that we want to access, a gravity that we want to access in this practice always. So just allow some arrival time in this way. We take the breaths in deeper now, so inhaling and exhaling with a deeper cycle of breathing. In a way that you expand through the back body, through the back ribs, through the skin of the back, especially, so it's not just a breath in our throat. Bring one hand to your belly, the other hand to your heart, and just create your personal intention for this time that we're in. Again, we're in a shift. We've been experiencing a lot of activation, especially from the planets. We are aligned in a very charged time with this particular set of eclipses that we've had in June. The lunar on June 5th and the solar here just left the seat early this morning. So it's a very charged time energetically, and we can feel it collectively. So this can translate as a lot of activation, a lot of triggered energy. So it can be if you've been feeling a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of reactionary tendencies within yourself from other people. So we're here to just kind of work with that. It's not the favorite things to work with, but create an intention that can help you really dive into and stay with and look at some of these activations. And we'll get deeper into those experiences within the poses, within the body today. So maybe an affirmation that brings you back to simply the breath, or just an affirmation, I am safe during this time of transition. I can be compassionate and patient through my anger. You know, there's lots of ways that we can come back to a really helpful intention. I know this is a time of great change. These are just some examples of what might support us. Our foundation will be the deep breath that we're in now, so just keep that going. And the gravity that we'll be working with to stay in these shapes. Let's begin, and take your arms above your head, reach the arms above the head, and then we're taking a side seam opening through the body as our first pose. So what you'll do is walk your feet over to one corner of your mat, and you'll walk your hands over to that same corner. And you'll take your fingers around the opposite side hand or wrist, so you just give a little pull into a stretch through the entire side seam of the body. So we do want to feel that opposite side that we're kind of walking away from open in a stretch. And we want to make sure we're not pulling our shoulder apart, our joint apart. You can also take this pose a little bit more weighted by crossing your ankles. So if you want to just kind of keep inching over, wiggling over with the feet and the hands, and then maybe cross one leg on top of the other, that gives it a little bit more weight to work with. You do want to stay on your back. This is banana pose because we come into a shape like a banana or a crescent moon. And then just drop back into that connection that we've already established through the back body, right into the earth. And although we work with the edginess in these shapes, in the yin shapes, we work with the specific sensations that we want to get deeper into. This one primarily, again, through the side seams, which is heart and lung meridians, all through gallbladder meridian, through the outer hip and leg. So we want to feel that primarily and relax, kind of the sensations in other places that maybe are still just coming out of a habit of tension. Maybe it's in our face, maybe it's in our jaw, just from clenching the jaw and frustration. Again, we're in a really I wanted to point out that the planetary alignment right now, there's a couple stars that are very activated. Antares is a star in the Scorpio constellation that's very activated, that became activated even before the lunar eclipse on June 5th, and it's going to continue for a while. The solar eclipse, again, really charged us up in a planet sense through Mars. Another kind of very fiery energy for the next 6 months. And so, again, if you're noticing this particular, and I have been noticing it just even beyond what's going on collectively with the protests and the movements and the uprisings, there's a specific energy even in my interpersonal life that I've been feeling and noticing from within myself, this certain kind of anger, this righteous anger that can arise. And it's very unusual, but it makes sense now to know that, again, that we're working actually with that specific energy. And the good thing is that when we know and when we notice these reactions, when we know, maybe a source of why, we can then, again, what we're doing here is we can stay with it. We can, instead of coming out of a reaction in the moment, we can say, oh, there it is. There's that righteous anger, or maybe it was directed at you. I've had that as well. And so you can notice, you say, oh, well, that was just that energy again arising. So it's good because it de-escalates and it helps you become really constructive in what to do with it. Just like these sensations, just like what we're doing physically here in yin, we can find ourselves into these, all of a sudden, these really stuck hips of ours, or tensions in the body that maybe it's just from how we moved this week, or we slept weird. And it brings us right into contact with, things that we don't like, the tensions, the places we're stuck. So it is a good process. It is a good thing. Even when we feel things such as anger or, frustrations, there's jealousy. This is a time that's really activating jealousy right now. So who likes to deal with that? No one. But it can be very constructive in how we start to work with it from within ourselves and from other people. And I just encourage you to keep an open heart, right? Keep your compassion present as the foundation as well, and a gentleness as you start to maneuver through these waters that we're in. We're in it collectively. And ultimately, it really inspires change. And that's what I see. I'm staying very positive and hopeful through this time period, through all that we're seeing right now with the social injustice, the Black Lives Matter movement. All of this awareness has needed to come up. It is time. And again, we have the support of the planets. It's a really warlike time of awareness. And when I say warlike, it's for the greater good. It's for the greater good that this is being all brought up. We're going to walk back slowly because we're one-sided here. We just want to come back to what feels neutral for a few breaths, a few rounds of breaths. You can slide your arms down alongside of you. And not to mention the pandemic, which has raised, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear. It's probably made us store a lot of tension because, all of a sudden we're not in our normal life at all anymore. So this is, again, paralleled, aligned with this specific time that we're in. And it is time, right? It is time. There's a lot that needs to dissolve, not just, collectively, but within ourselves personally. And this is what this time is asking of us. We're going to take this pose to our second side. This is a two-sided pose. So what you'll do is just simply walk your feet over to your other corner, the other side you were not on, and same thing, bring the arms above the head and then just start to walk the hands over and keep going in these poses. You're going to find your first initial shape in these postures, and then you're going to be able to go deeper as you work with the sensation, as you work with the uncomfortable, go deeper. So we're not just going to kind of pick our spot and then kick back and that's it. We keep going in. We keep going in. We keep looking. We keep feeling. Cross your one ankle over the other if you find you need a little bit more weight to stay right on your back body here. And you'll notice that, the sides of the body are always different as we take these side-to-side shapes within ourselves. That's normal feel. Just don't pull any joints apart, but do feel that you're accessing some space. I love this, any lateral stretches for the space that it gives us in the rib cage, the side rib cage space for breathing. So breathe into those open ribs, around the hips. We get very, very, very compressed in our just daily life postures. And again, the way that we've been feeling lately and all the events that have been going on really takes a toll physically because anything mental that stresses us out or triggers us, just it takes a toll in a stressful way physically. We become really kind of maybe closed off. We're in defense mode a lot. Take a look at that. Take a look at the postures that you kind of find yourself in these days. Has that changed? Have we kind of collapsed in our chest? Have we shortened our breathing even more than often, more than when we're in times of stress? Because it's been kind of a prolonged period. And there's also been periods of really going in and slowing down, which has been very, very helpful, especially at the beginning of this pandemic. We've been forced to kind of go in and sit with ourselves, and that can be either really welcomed by some of us. We have a personality that welcomes this inward time, and then for others it's been quite challenging. So that challenge again presents itself sometimes as anxiety, as panic attacks, depression. I know I've had certain feelings of depression throughout this, uncertain time. So I noticed. So those are the indicators. Those are the ways that we can notice when we're in these new places. And to be in this practice, we stay, right? We breathe. We go into the uncomfortable. We take a look, we lean in, and then we go further. We actually increase the edginess. We go further into it because we're getting good at staying. We're getting good at accessing and understanding through compassion. Oh, there's that. Now my edge is fading. I got to go a little deeper. So it asks of us this excavation, this way of really being honest, really moving into the pain, moving into the suffering, into the source. And so it's never easy. It's not a fluffy practice. So we'll do our best, and we'll come back to the breath. We'll come back to our intention of support. This practice will last far beyond what we get into personally on our mat today. It's going to continue to permeate throughout the day, and we'll ultimately access release. We'll come circle back around into the deep peace that we're really always holding within. We're always in a place of safety within this deep, deep intrinsic peace that really has nothing to do with our externals. It has nothing to do with our situation. It has nothing to do with skin color. It has nothing to do with the time that we're in. There's an eye within the storm that really truly exists. That's not even personal. It's just a piece that we can circle back to when we get deep enough. And I know that you've felt that before in the most, intensive times in your life. I know that you have felt that okayness, even if it wasn't pure joy and vibrant, like, I'm doing a dance right now. There's been at least a base of peace that you've accessed. So knowing that, remembering that that is our foundation is very comforting as well. So it helps us do this work. Take a few more rounds of banana breath. We're going to be slow in our transitions and how we return. And so just starting to uncross the ankles, starting to walk slowly back to your neutral. Slowly back, maybe just sliding the arms down very slowly. I like to just kind of rock my legs or shake my legs out. This might be really fun to feel some movement in between and really still times, these meditations. And we're going to reach for one of our blocks. Bend your knees, walk your feet back, and press down through the feet. Take your block, either low or your medium setting, lift the pelvis up, and slide the block underneath the low back pelvis area. Okay, so you find your place. And then again, I want you to ground once you land, really ground on your bolster, but be willing to experiment, be willing to move it a little higher. Remember, we want to feel, we're putting ourselves purposely in that slightly uncomfortable but therapeutic place, the place we need to access, the place we ultimately need to release the tension from, but we apply the tension first. So you're using the block for the compression in the tissues, the thick fascia of the low back first. Let your pelvis really rest and root down. Once you get into your initial place, doesn't mean where you'll end up. You're going to lift your feet up off the earth. Again, our shoulders are just dropping back. We have all this new breathing space through the side seams. And then maybe some friends at home are just lifting the legs to the sky in a full inversion, and we just get upside down. I hope that you've been getting upside down lately, even if it's just your legs up against a wall from your bed. This is, I always talk about the great flushing of stagnant energy from the lower body, but it's really a great flushing for our hormones, our stress hormone in particular. So to do this every day is really wonderful. It's a wonderful support for yourself. So just feel, and again, if it's too much with the legs up, all you do is just bend the knees, and you can work with the feet a little lower where we started, or if it's too much altogether, bringing the feet down. And you can bring your arms over the top of your head. This is a nice way to start to feel that opening in the heart again, where we were just experiencing in our banana shape. So if that felt supportive in the heart opening, you can continue there. Just take up a little bit more space. Just opening the arms wide might be really all you need to feel that space. But take up space. And so let arise, especially in this low back area, what must come up, what we probably have already been feeling lately. And if you've noticed that you have been feeling particularly tense in the low back area, again, that can be these emotional triggers of this very activated time that we're in. But again, we have to kind of, it's our job to turn that into really constructive energy. We have a choice in that, as always. When we start to just kind of succumb to that, feeling of, oh, this is never ending, and I'm just going to start to feel that triggered sensation all the time these days, or that despair, or that anger, or that jealousy. Again, these kind of lower vibrational energies that we've been feeling, we can definitely start to fall into feeling like a victim role. And some people have been feeling that collectively for years. And so we're getting in touch with that feeling of a victim. And that's important. It's an important feeling to know. It's an important feeling, all of these feelings, to understand and say, oh, this is what it feels like. It's so helpful for this awareness. It's so helpful for then, again, taking the step of, through the understanding, through the feeling, what can I do? I do have a choice now. And if you don't have that moment of recognition, then it's just going to continue. Right? So how do we kind of cross over through this threshold of our anger, our threshold of our depression, the threshold into, right? This is asking us to step into change. And so only us, it's very personal in this way. We're taking actions constructively, but it is important to de-escalate some of the drama and stay with the positive action that can be chosen during this time. And this is how the shift will occur within ourselves personally, on all levels, in a community, in a nation. So the ripple effect really, really starts with us personally and intimately, and through that recognition. Go ahead and bring the feet down, so 1 foot at a time. Just take it slow, so you can start to just connect your feet back to the earth. And we stay with this bridge pose now with our block. So if you want to move it to a different setting, maybe you want to take it to the medium setting, a little higher, a little lower. And you can stay with the feet here. You can start to walk the feet forward. You can start to just extend the legs all together. This brings us into stomach spleen meridian through the front of the legs, through the quad tissue and the hip flexor tissues. Again, maybe you take your arms over your head, and this feels very open in the heart center. And just close the eyes. You can let the legs flop. So that, again, that intention we kind of took together of letting things relax with gravity into the earth wherever you can. Really getting heavy on your block, getting heavy on your bolster so that you can feel that compression that you're working into. Remember, if you need to walk back and actually adjust where you're setting your block, maybe for some of you the edge has faded and you need to bring it down. You need to stay edgy. We need to stay in that sensation of something's happening, right? Otherwise, we just start to get complacent, which is what happens so often in our life. We just get used to our routine. We get used to the habits. We get used to our life. we've become complacent. And if anything, this 3-month time period, and now this particularly potent activation with the eclipses, if anything, this is urging us to do is to not be complacent. But there is a shift, and what I've been feeling, what I've been seeing are all these instances of just, fed upness collectively, where people are just fed up, of the inequality. People are starting to really see that it cannot go on like this. It's not a sustainable model. Our society is just not sustainable. Our personal habit of reaction is it's not sustainable anymore. We have to uncross those stubborn arms of ours and just really see the matter in a more humble, open-hearted way within our own lives. Because where does that get us? The deeper that we go into that, holding on for dear life to a really fear-based way, where does that really get us? It has gotten us more divided, and this is the great illusion. This is the great illusion that we learn of in our in our Vedic stories, even of Maya, the great goddess of illusion herself, and she was brought into the stories really to show us that it is a great illusion that we're separate beings. It's the game of the humanity as a whole that we've been playing. We've been doing it for so long. But as a spiritual being made of pure energy, it's not true. Even if you look at it, from a scientific point of view, the air we breathe is shared with every living being. It's just not true. So again, we've held on to these ways, and we do it interpersonally in a really small town level, and that's where again it gets harder and harder to address because it becomes so personal. Are we willing to look at where we're kind of reacting into these ways that are fear-based from our own self that we're not addressing, and we're kind of giving it to somebody else? There's been a lot of debates going on, a lot of shaming, a lot of guilting, and again, those tactics, I see them from a perspective of just, a fearful perspective from within, that it's a great resistance of change, rather than just looking at the issue, rather than just kind of looking at, well, we're fighting about something. Why are we even fighting about this? Why are we fighting about inequality anyway? I mean, it's a moral thing. So, all of that is just sort of a residual of fear, the resistance of change. But, it's happening whether we like it or not. So it is really important to take this practice of ours, this inward practice of ours, this inventory, very seriously for our life, for the rest of our life. And it's not for us, it's really for how we want to leave this planet, how we want to leave it for children in the future. The Native Americans have known this for a long time. Walk your feet back to where you just feel your feet pressing into the earth, and then lift your hips up and slowly remove your block. We've been in a back bend. We've been in this bridge for a while, really bringing in that lumbar curve again. So come down into that tenderness. I'm sure you're feeling that creakiness from having been on that block, into that compression for a while. We're taking these holds longer today to get into the depth. Just stay with this. Keep your knees bent. Stay with the fragility. We will follow this up with a twist. We're going to take our twist next as our next pose. So I want you to shift your hips over to one side. Shift your body over to one side of your mat, so you're not in the center of it anymore. And make sure you have maybe your blanket or your block really nearby so you don't have to struggle reaching for it. And elongate the legs. Now, the leg that's on the outside of you, you're just going to hug in. Just give it a nice little hug. You'll feel a compression in the hip. And then extend the leg. So the inside leg is long. It stays long toward the center of the mat. And the outside leg is lifted and extended. And so what we're going to do is take this leg across the body toward the opposite side. So you're just bringing the leg all the way across, and we come into this spiral. The leg that's staying on your mat is just on its outer edge now. You've taken kind of a quarter turn. So you're just taking a nice twist with this leg extended. Now this is maybe a lot for some friends at home, so you have a block that you can rest your leg on. If that's taking away any of the outer edge pull, then you might want to move your block. Remember, we do want to feel edgy. Now, with your outside arm, the same arm as the leg that you just brought across, you can reach it up to the sky and then drop it back toward the earth. And this might mean that your shoulder is touching, and it might mean that your shoulder is not touching. So we can stay in this full spiral and full through the neck spine or the cervical spine by turning your head toward your arm. And if that becomes too much, just come back to a more neutral with, like, you're kind of looking up at the sky, or maybe even looking at the leg that's come across. That's the most gentle. Now, I'm going to continue with suggestions, and these are just suggestions, variations, and so nothing's mandatory here. You can, if this full extended leg is too much, just try bending the knee. That actually might even give you a little bit more weight or heaviness to work with. You might also extend the leg and extend your other arm and maybe hold on to your foot. Some friends might be doing that. That might give you a little bit more sensation to work with here. And finally, you could, and you're on this outer edge of the other leg, you could bend that knee and sort of take a hold of the foot, right? And that brings us into a secondary stretch through this bottom leg, this base leg, through the quad. And, you know, you might be feeling that you need a little bit more in that secondary place where we started to feel in bridge pose. And again, in energetic terms, it's stomach and spleen meridians that we start to access. Again, we're staying here in this kind of outer hip primary stretch through the leg and outer hip. That's our gallbladder meridian. And we're still working in the heart and lung meridians as we open the chest. So you don't have to take this, this is called cat pulling its own tail pose. You don't have to take this bind with, you know, holding your foot at all. If that's too much, just let that leg go. And primarily we work through the spiral through the spine. And this is really great for, you know, keeping the space that you just created in your bridge pose earlier that we started to open up in the low back. So again, just let whatever flavors of emotion arise. This could be anger. We're working in those inner outer seams of the legs and the hips. We're working in the low back, sadness, grief. And again, we've been maybe just feeling that in general on a day-to-day basis a little bit more intensely than we have. You know, I know that I get into those moments where I just can't believe it. I just can't believe, you know, how humans behave. It astounds me, the lack of compassion. And, you know, that gets heavy. I know that I process that. And then I know that this is the opportunity for people to get in touch with that. But that's really the work. You know, it's really the work to get in touch with our own compassion. And whether a person can do that or not, or is even willing to do that or not, is a personal choice. Because once we're guided, once we're led with our heart, with compassion, right, we kind of make the the good choices that we need to make, kind of the obvious choices is what I'm really trying to say, quite naturally, right? The good of all is a natural moral compass when it has to do with compassion, when it has to do with love and matters of the heart. So, there's a lot of fear built around the heart. There's a lot of protection. And that's, what we're seeing right now. We're seeing it in a really physical sense. But again, we've got these kind of planets aligned in very warlike places, but it's not to wreak havoc this energy doesn't come up during this time to really bring us into more of a misdirected, violent aggression. It's a righteous anger, like I mentioned before. It's a righteous anger to bring us into, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to say something. I'm going to, say, this isn't right. This isn't right. And that can be really powerful for, this positive change that we're kind of being ushered into. Again, whether you like it or not, it's happening. And it's going to continue to happen. I think the examples that we're seeing of justice, it's important to watch those victories. It's important to see the positive tide change day to day, as it is, as we tend to dwell on all the negative occurrences and just kind of dwell in that victim place or in that, kind of like, oh, that despair. So it's important to make that shift into recognition of, well, this is good. That's how we're going to stay open. That's how we're going to start to really make the change within ourselves. Is it really uplifts us when we're being positive and helpful and beneficial. And take a few more rounds of breath on this side. We're going to be in a bilateral situation here soon where we have a second side, but first just, we're going to move it slow. So if you have a hold of your foot and your knee is bent, just release that bind. And then come back slowly into what feels neutral. Ooh, there's a lot there in the spine. And you can hug that knee in again if that is a place you want to feel a little bit more. The hip opener in the sense of compression in the hip, you're hugging it in. And then just that leg can gradually extend. Okay, now we're going to move back to center and just breathe a few rounds of the deep breath in the center, just between sides. I know we feel sensationally different halfway through this. And then just bring yourself slowly to your second side on the mat. So you're just going to shift your body over. Shift the body over. And now the outside leg, again, you can hug that in. You might want to move, for support under this leg, your block to your other side. Maybe you want to even take your blanket underneath your head as a pillow. That might just feel nice. Right? A little comfort under the head itself. And just hug this leg in. You might feel the hip opening compression here again. And when you're ready, extend this leg. So we come into that first kind of extended version of the leg first, and then take it across. You can take your opposite arm and just guide this leg across to your other side. Now, you can shift the hips. You're on the outer seam of that base leg, right? The outer hip, the outer seam of the foot. And again, to open the heart back, you can lift the Same side as your leg that came across, your arm up, and drop it back. And just drop it back. So, one side, my shoulder is much closer to the earth than the other, and we don't judge that. We just go into where we need to be sensationally for yin. So we're going into our edginess with gravity. Now again, the same choices exist in experimentation on this side as the first side. So you might want to bend your knee, bend the knee that came across. If that's too much with an extended leg, too much sensation, pull back, right? If it's not therapeutic. You might want to rest your leg on the block. Again, your bottom knee can bend, and maybe that arm reaches down for a bind, and you draw that foot towards your pelvis, and that is going to increase stretch and sensation through the front of that thigh, through the quad, the flexor. And that might be, for some of us, really necessary. If you have a strap, if you have a yoga strap, you can, or just even a belt, you can use that for the spine if you're not reaching your foot all the way, but you do want to access your arm that's closest to your leg side here that came across. You might just rest it on your leg and work into a little bit more of a heaviness or a weight. Some friends might even be taking a hold of that foot if you're reaching. But again, all are just options for you to work in and experiment in and be curious in. A good basic kind of question that we can really ask ourselves that I use a lot, and it was originally from work I did with a woman named Byron Katie. And she prompted us in times of really, inquiry and questioning ourselves, honest inventory, is just the simple question of, is it true? It seems so simple, but if we kind of examine in this way, like if we have this kind of reaction out of habit because it's our personality types, right? I know that there's certain personality types that like to react in certain patterns or ways, and we all have them. We all have these patterns or habits from our whole lifetime. If you find yourself examining those patterns and habits, with this pause that we're learning about in yin, when we take ourselves into stillness and we sit with these uncomfortable feelings, one of the questions you can ask yourself about that thought, or that reaction that you're now noticing, like before you say it to a person or before, it goes on a debate, on a social media debate, or, you can ask yourself a very, and it feels very vulnerable when you do, you just say, is that true? And usually that helps to really open something. It helps to open you to that kind of next layer. Because a lot of times we find out, and this was true for me, we find out that, how we've been behaving, or our thought patterns, so a lot of our thoughts aren't true. They come from our worry. They come from our stress. They come from, and it really, it's that kind of de-escalation practice that we want to get into. We want to kind of, that dissolving of the fear. And so a great practice is just, when that arises, say, but is it true? And in that way, you don't need to react. You find out, whether it's coming from somebody else or you. And there are going to be times where, yes, it's true. And that's when, again, those really heartfelt, compassionate moments arise where, the planets are aligned. You can say something. It's good to confront those things, as hard as it is. But so there's times where, yes, it's true. And these are the kind of meanderings that we go through that can be very tricky because they look similar. The thought patterns can look and feel similar within ourselves, and we get confused. So I just encourage you, that was just another option, again, another suggestion of something that may work for you. You might try it in your questioning for yourself about your own belief or your own thought, or when you feel a reaction towards someone else. And just ask yourself, honestly, is that true? And see what's there. So just let that moment happen. What is true? It starts to bubble up. Just like in these poses, it starts to bubble up. Once we sit with the direct places in the body that we're feeling stuck in, and we give it some time and we give it some intention of staying with compassion, we start to understand, oh, well, that was just something I was holding on to. We allow there to be space. We allow that moment of awareness to actually occur. I'll take a few more breaths here. Long held poses today. You are going to feel creaky and maybe a little bit more than usual sore. So you're just going to release, if you have the leg, just release the bind. And then take it slow, just moving back to the back body. So we come out of the spiral. And shift your hips. Woo, I can feel that second side a lot. And you're just shifting into neutral. And you can shift on back to the center of your mat. So just allow yourself some little mini Shavasana time here. We've been in those outer hips a lot today, through the back so far, side seams of the body. Roll to one side. Roll to one side, and you'll press your way up. Once you come up, you'll use your blankets to sit on. And you'll just use them to lift the back, because we have created all this really good space in the back, and we don't want to just kind of go back to our compressed sitting posture. So I'm going to use 2 blankets here because I need an extra lift here. And find your blocks and just have those again so you're not struggling later to find them. Bring your pelvis and your sitting bones to the front edge of your stack of blankets, or one blanket. Maybe some friends are not on a blanket. It's okay. And then we're bringing it to the front edge, and we're taking an even seat. So rock yourself side to side, really finding the sitting bones evenly first, because we do want to feel that weighted sensation even. And then bring the soles of the feet together. So we're going to come into our hip opening through butterfly. And for a lot of us, where we're really tight in the inner seams of the legs, which you might be feeling, and that's our liver meridian. There's our anger right there. The sensation of, or the flavor of emotional anger usually gets stored kind of in this inner seam of the leg. You'll be able to prop, your legs with the blocks. So with these supports, you might ease into that initial sensation that feels like a lot, and then remember you can take them away later. So just finding that later, if that's not true, you just bring them away and you have more sensation to work with. Now the blocks can also be used in front of you, because we're going to take this a little bit more into now a forward fold. So just take your hands to your mat or the earth in front of you, and just kind of on fingertips walk your way into, it's going to get even more sensational through the hips, right? It's going to get more edgy through the hips, into maybe now sensation you can feel along through the back body. When you get here, you can choose to let your head go. So this is a really great way to use the weight of your skull to kind of pull the tension out of the shoulders, all that shoulder crunching, closed off of our heart shrugging that we kind of get into with our postures, right? Just let that go. And then if that feels like too much, use your blocks to rest your head on. So you can create a little headrest. So this might be really nice for you to work in. So butterfly pose, finding your just right place. You can also start to work with the feet close by the pelvis, and this creates more sensation through the inner seams of the legs, so you can experiment where the feet are during these minutes. And then you can also move the feet away, and that will create a little less sensation through the inner thighs, but maybe more sensation into the forward fold and into the back body tissue. Okay, and along the back here we have urinary bladder meridian. So energetically we've been really cleansing these channels toward these organs. I always mention it's the same work as in acupuncture or acupressure. You know, we work to cleanse the energetic channels so that our body can function more fully together with the organs. I'm going to share a little passage with you while you're inward in your butterfly from Mark Nepo. And this is called Burying and Planting. The culmination of one love, one dream, one self is the anonymous seed of the next. There is very little difference between burying and planting. For often we need to put dead things to rest so that new life can grow. And further, the thing put to rest, whether it be a loved one, a dream, a false way of seeing, becomes the fertilizer for the life about to form. As the well-used thing joins with the earth, the old love fertilizes the new. The broken dream fertilizes the dream yet conceived. The painful way of being that strapped us to the world fertilizes the freer inner stance about to unfold. And this is very helpful when considering the many forms of self we inhabit over a lifetime. One self carries us to the extent of its usefulness, and then it dies. We are then forced to put that once beloved skin to rest, to join it with the ground of spirit from which it came, so it may fertilize the next skin of self that will carry us into tomorrow. There is always grief for what is lost, and always surprise at what is to be born. But much of our pain in living comes from wearing a dead and useless skin, refusing to put it to rest, or from burying such things with the intent of hiding them rather than relinquishing them. For every new way of being, there is a failed attempt mulching beneath the tongue. For every sprig that breaks surface, there is an old stick stirring underground. And for every moment of joy sprouting, there is a new moment of struggle taking root. We live, embrace, and put to rest our dearest things, including how we see ourselves, so that we can resurrect our lives anew. And so a meditation might be to try to identify one aspect of your way in the world that has outlived its usefulness, a way of thinking or feeling or speaking or relating. And try to understand why you are still wearing it. You can journal what this outlived aspect is and why you are still wearing it. And take the paper and symbolically bury it somewhere special, giving thanks for how this outlived way has helped you to this point in your path. Be kind to the new space that burying this has opened in you, and water it and keep it in the light. Okay, and we've got just a couple more breaths, and you're going to be so slow in your creaky emerging. So just start to walk back up. If you're in the forward fold, you're just walking back up. This is where it gets creaky in our hips. You've been in a double hip opener for a while, so just use your hands. You can help your legs come back to neutral hips out of there. Okay. So you've got a lot of sensation and opening through the inner seams and through the hips that you might be feeling today after this. And the releases do occur long after the practice itself. So just notice, go slow if you can today. We're going to take it back to our back body. I'd like us to work a little bit more into that correctiveness of what we were trying to open earlier in banana, but even more so in the heart and through the rigidness of our thoracic spine. Again, we sit in postures, and take notice of the postures you've been in for long periods of time. Over time, this sitting and then caving in, and again, that can be from a real despair or a worry or a stress. We take a lot of that into our posture, our physical being. So we're going to open up with lung bench today. So you can take your 2 blocks to your mat and put them horizontally, one after the other. So I have them on the medium settings here, but you can be on low setting and medium setting. This top one is going to rest your head. This other one lands right in the upper, or mid-back area. So choose, the setting that you want, just like you did in bridge. It'll be really your experience. There's no right or wrong here. So I'm going to start on medium, see how that feels. Again, this is a horizontal support across the mid-back, upper mid-back. And this is that real rigid area of the spine. It's the most kind of rigid area of the spine, that and the sacrum. So you're going to land. It's going to feel like, oh my gosh, edgy probably. And you're going to put your head way back, and it feels like, where's my block? But your head rests with that heaviness on the block. And be willing to come up. Be willing to move your block location a couple times. You want the compression. We're coming into, the tension that we actually do want. Great big back bend here. We prepped for this earlier in our bridge. So we have all that space opening in the low back. This is really a full body here, full body pose. So once you come into this place of, okay, there's my edge, that's where I start out, you have a lot of options, again, in this shape. You can let your legs do nothing. That might just be enough for you. We've been through inner outer seams today. You might bring the soles of the feet together and go back to butterfly where we just were. And then you might do the opposite. You might walk your feet wide and drop your knees together. And this starts to work, again, in the outer seams that we were feeling in our cat pulling tail pose. So those are choices. I think, just extending the legs is great too. Maybe you just want that more neutral feeling there. The arms can start to come over your head, and this is suspension because we're so elevated on these blocks, right? So if you need a little support, just take a bind like you did in banana pose earlier, fingers around the wrist, and just drop the arms back. And if that's too much, remember there's that pulling back. Don't let the ego, the yang, right, come into our yin. This is what we're balancing, all that ego-ness of the, I got to push to the fullest extent and extreme. That's not always healthy. I know that goal-driven mentality is kind of, especially in our culture, very present. So, yin really invites us not to do that. So if that's too much, come into the edginess that's therapeutic for you. So maybe it's just, on the side. And close the eyes. We're really going to start to take it down into the earth again as much as we can, just letting go. And I'd like to share with you another passage I chose for today's theme here we're working with in this change, this great time of change. I mean, it's a new season even. The fear of what is different. And this is a quote from Teju Bindu Upanishad. To direct the mind towards the basic unity of all things and to divert it from the seizing of differences, therein lies bliss. The eye can see what we have in common or focus on what keeps us apart. And the heart can feel what joins us with everything or replay its many cuts. And the tongue can praise the wind or warn against the storm. It can praise the sea or dread the flood. It's not that there are no differences. The world is made of infinite variety. Rather, it is the seizing of differences, the fearing of differences, that keeps us from feeling grace. Paradoxically, everything in life touches the same center through its uniqueness. The way no two souls are the same, though every soul breathes the same air. When we fall into the illusion that one creation is better than another, we remove ourselves from the miracle of being and enter what a 6th century sage once said, the mind's worst disease, the endless deciding between want and don't want, the endless war between for and against. We're going to transition into one more pose before our Shavasana. And I want you to be really slow about how you come off of your blocks. I like to just roll to the side. So maybe if that feels like the easiest way to move off of these blocks. And we are just going to start to press our way back up. I know it's a lot to do right now. if you're practicing. And so just, we'll feel tender with that, but we are going to go a little deeper, but just move the direction of our blocks. So from lung bench, which was horizontal, you're going to move into a vertical, into heart bench, which is, we're going to just move that first block underneath the upper back horizontal or vertically, from horizontal to vertical. And then you still have the same choice with your head. The block underneath your head can stay the same. You can use it on a low, you can use it on a high setting or medium. But you just change the direction of that first block. Feel free to use a blanket if the block feels too edgy right now. And then sit in front of it, again, where you're going to have a back bend, but the pelvis stays on the floor. And then roll back into where you need to be. It's a different sensation than the first way, right? We were horizontal, now we're vertical. So there's going to be the similar options to choose in the legs. Maybe in lung bench it felt good to just extend the legs more neutrally, but maybe here it feels more accessible to come into your butterfly, feet together, knees apart, or feet apart and knees together. Maybe, again, you really start fresh. This is always beginner's mind every time we come into these shapes, even from the last time we practiced this shape. And then the arms can come over your head, and you can, start to really open a little bit more in that suspension of the heart center, suspension of the arms into the heart and lung meridians. Just soften the face. Soften the skin of the back that feels compressive into the block. And just take those deep breaths. Release anything and everything that has been excavated that you have so bravely and courageously noticed today in this inquiry, these deep dives through the portals of our physical body, through this inquiry of the mind. You've asked the question, is it true? And whatever has arisen that's not true, let it go. Let it go. What we start to find in this process is that we've wasted so much of our energy on these, patterns of questioning, these patterns of habits, these patterns of thoughts of ours that are not true. We've wasted a lot of time of our life, and we have the choice now not to. And we're in a really supported time in the planet of taking action for the greater good. So we can be, really truly part of this shift now that must occur. It's happening anyway. So maybe we can look at the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, as a catalyst for having stopped us in our tracks, made us go inside. For some of us, this is the first time we've taken on even meditation or yogic practice in our lives where we've even done some of this questioning. We've just been so busy all the time. I've heard from some friends that have been go, go, go all the time that they've never had a break like this. That, they realized that they've needed this balance of stillness and inwardness in their life, that we've been kind of just going so quickly and we are just going with the motions. So maybe I like to look at it as a catalyst for this change. And then what started to occur was, all this awareness of what's always really been here, all this oppression. It's nothing new. It's that it's being brought to our attention. We're living in such a technological age where everything is digitally exposed. Here we are practicing together through the internet. So it can be a great catalyst for this wonderful change, and it can actually bring us together even if we're thousands of miles apart. We can feel from this inner inquiry of ourselves this shift of togetherness, this shift of the planet as a whole. We have to keep doing the work. Take a few more rounds of your heart bench breath. You can start to bring your feet in a little bit more neutrally. And then just again, if it's easiest for you to roll just to the side so that you can move your blocks, your supports from your mat and take it down into your Shavasana. And again, this is our final shape that's so important for letting go, for surrender, the practice of surrender, maybe taking a blanket as a pillow or rolling a blanket under the knees as a support. This is really nice support for the back. And let there be tenderness from practice. Again, you're going to feel a lot of these sensations for quite some time today. You've been in deep, deep connective tissues and fascia, so they're really rigid normally. So you're creating that rehydration in those real rigid areas. So just let them feel, tender from having been moved. Just sink in. Go to where we began all this, just connected, grounded with the earth itself. What connects us all, the earth, and our roots, our deep roots. The changes, the cycles, the things that we must bury, and the things that we're intentionally planting that is nourished by the old ways through surrender itself. Continue today to feel this abiding peace that you know is there beneath the layers. The okayness of it all beneath our fear. The unity, the connection that we truly do have with one another beyond the division. And continue to rest in the cycles of this deeper breath you created physical space for today. Through the ribs, breathe into the side seams, breathe into the back more often, breathe down deep and just as deeply back out. If you find that you get anxious or lose the breath, just remember it and it will restore. Wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes. We are re-emerging once again into our day, a second awakening, transformed from our practice always, and this is the great magic of yoga itself. Take a beautiful opening stretch through the spine. Find your awakening wave through the body, reaching, opening, breathing, and eventually you'll roll to your side, draw your knees up, take your first posture of life, and touch the earth with a great gratitude. Remember your intention as you rise, that which will come with you in your heart today to support you in all of your yin ways, to balance the yang ways, to bring us into that sacred pause that we can find once we remember. We can ask ourselves, is it true? We can pause before we react, and we can make great choice that way from our heart into our next step, into our next phase, into our next emergence. We have great opportunity and support from the universe to do just that. Bring your hands together to the heart center. And I thank and I honor each one of you every time for bravely taking this time deep within yourself. And I wish you the best for this new cycle of our season, summer solstice, for the new cycle of personal life as we move through such opportunity of change for the better. And it might get worse and sticky before it gets better, but the best changes always do. So thank you so much, friends. Sending you love, peace, and unity. Namaste. Have a beautiful day. See you next time.